Hi card makers, this is Tricia at Club Scrap with a card making tutorial featuring our Happy Camper collection. We're going to make a dozen super fun cards. I got my instructions ready here, and of course the Happy Camper card kit, which includes some beautiful ribbons, your very own gel pen. It's a 0.5 millimeter, so it's a nice fine tip, perfect for some cute little sketches we're going to make. And then we have 4 adorable compass charms and a generous serving of Christmas, or not Christmas, but tree-shaped brads that we can use, and some sweet little craft jar-shaped tags, as well as a plentiful pack of paper. And I'm going to show you how to turn these papers into a dozen cards. So we're going to prep things for trimming. I think I'll save these 2 sheets of cut-aparts for last, and then let's get our papers in order that we'll be using them so that we avoid making errors as we trim them together. So the first piece that I want you to set aside is the blue plain, the dark blue, followed by 1 sheet of light blue. Then find the 2 beautiful prints we've included in your kit, and then put those face down on top of your trimmer on the stack that we're building. Then locate a green plain, a light blue plain, craft, and also keep in mind this is a super heavy duty sheet of paper. Just make sure you just have 1 of them. And 1 white plain, another blue, and craft, green, and white. Then we'll finish up with these other sheets of cut-aparts here on the bottom. If you didn't keep up with me on that, no worries. You can play and rewind this again, or just grab the pieces of paper as we go through the process. Now with my printed instructions, I'm going to turn right away to page 2, and I'll help walk you through all of this trimming, and then if a piece of paper needs to be scored, we'll set it aside. If not, we will file it into the pocket indicated or piles. So what we're going to do is keep 3 main piles for card set A, B, and C. So I have a pocket for each of those, A, B, and C. And then in pocket D, I'm going to place any leftover scraps that I can use later in my card making as well. I'm just going to take this 1 blue sheet of paper and figure out the grain direction before I pop this into my trimmer. Now if you look on this diagram again, you will see an arrow that points from top to bottom right on the sheet of paper. So I want the grain direction to dip easily from top to bottom before I drop this in the trimmer. So if I hold the paper this way, there's a definite arc to it. If I hold it from this edge, it's much more stiff and unflexible. This way, very flexible. So that's how this paper goes into my trimmer. Let's begin by cutting at 10 1/4. So this is the Fisker's guillotine. Make sure you stabilize on the clear bar before you make that first slice. And then let's slide that down to 7 inches. Let's rotate this piece so it's horizontal, and we'll cut at 10. Now this piece becomes a card base. I'm just going to set that aside so that we can score it, and we'll file it later. Now we have this 2 by 7 inch piece here. I'm going to trim this horizontally at 6, 4, and 2. 6, 4, 2. So these 3 little squares that we just created, we can pop those in pocket C, and then there is a smaller piece. You can save it in pocket D as a scrap if you'd like. And then the next strip to the right of the blade we'll pick up. It's 3 1/4 by 12. We'll trim that horizontally at 10 1/4 and 8 1/4. So this long narrow piece, we'll file that in pocket C, and this skinnier guy goes in B. And then this other final piece, the first one we created off the end, that goes in D for decorating potential. And now we have 1 last narrow strip. We'll cut this horizontally at 10 1/4, 8 1/2, and 6 3/4. Okay, so that leaves a skinny, tall piece and then 3 squares. All of this goes in pocket C. We're going to do this one more time with the light blue plain, and then again we'll do it with both copies of the print that we've included. So all 4 of these papers are trimmed the same way. So I'm going to find my grain direction, make sure it dips easily top to bottom, and we'll trim this again. I'll go a little faster this time. We're at 10 1/4 and 7. Rotate, cut at 10. Set this aside to be scored. Pick up the next strip. We'll cut at all the even numbers, 6, 4, and 2. Take the 3 squares, put them in pocket C, and the final little rectangle can go in D for didn't use. Then this longer strip will cut twice. First one at 10 1/4, and then 8 1/4. This long narrow piece goes in pocket C, this next one in B, and the last in the stack in D. Now this really skinny piece will cut at 10 1/4, 8 1/2, and 6 3/4. All of these pieces are filed in pocket C. Next, take the sheet of paper and determine the grain direction. It definitely feels more dippy this way, so I'll cut them both in the same direction. Same exact recipe, so it's just repeat and repeat here. 10 1/4. So with this, just make sure you stabilize and hold the paper carefully. And then 7. Rotate and cut at 10. Set aside for scoring. Pick up this narrow strip, and you can do both at the same time if you feel comfortable, and if you don't, just go ahead and rewind and do this process twice. So that's at 6, 4, and 2. It's amazing how after doing it a couple times you just sort of memorize what's happening and where everything gets filed. At least that's what happens to me. Okay, we have all these little squares. The actual squares go in pocket C, and then we have 2 skinny little rectangles, pocket D. The next 2 pieces should be the same size. We'll pick them up and cut them at the same time. That's 10 1/4. Just make sure that they're nice and lined up well. And then 8 1/4. The long narrow piece goes in pocket C. Then we have these 2 rectangles, B, and the other 2 rectangles that are just slightly smaller, D. Lastly, 2 strips. More review for us. We will cut at 10 1/4, 8 1/2, and 6 3/4. Long skinny strip goes in pocket C along with all of the squares that we made. Wow, lots of stuff going into C there. That's okay. Next, we're going to pick up a green plane and make sure that it dips easily left to right. And you'll see that in the diagram as well. Dip from left to right. So I'm just checking my grain. And then I'll do the same thing with the blue. So I'll do the green and the blue at the same time. Now that you're getting the hang of this, we'll cut at 11 1/4 and 7. Then we'll rotate this, be really careful. Make sure you grab both sheets and have them nicely lined up. And we will cut at 8 1/2. These 2 larger pieces are set aside for scoring. And then this longer piece here will trim horizontally at 5 3/4. Pocket B. And some scraps. Now I did end up using quite a few of my little scraps, so they're kind of fun to have those handy. All right, the next larger piece that remains to the right of the trimmer will cut horizontally at 11 and 5 1/2. Should have made 4 pieces the same size. All of that goes in pocket A, and some little guys for pocket D. And the same is true for these long strips. I did end up using them, but for now, we'll just put those in D. And those are all optional, of course. Now we can move on to the craft. Make sure it dips easily left to right. And I'm going to be brave and do the white plane at the same time. Make sure it dips easily left to right. This is a little bit different. I'm on step 3 of the trimming instructions. So if you're following, I'm right here. And we'll cut it 9.5 and 7. Very similar to how we started. Actually, at this point, we're going to cut horizontally now after rotating that piece at 8.5. Set this aside for scoring. Take this piece, trim it horizontally at 5 3/4. This goes in pocket B, and then you have these skinny guys, D. Now you have, I'm going to grab a set of 2 that are the same. These are 2.5 by 12, and we'll cut it 6 3/4. This larger piece goes in C, and then you have, believe it or not, these pieces are in pocket D because I didn't find a home for them officially. Unofficially, I did. And same with the other pair, 6 3/4, and same distribution. These longer ones go in C, and then the smaller go in scrap pile or D. Now it's going to get fun. Let's take a dark blue and make sure it dips easily top to bottom, and then same for a craft. We're dipping, I guess I like to check it. We want it going top to bottom with the grain. Our first cut is at 11 3/4. It's going to create a really tiny little scrap. Then slide down to 8 inches. Then you'll need to set aside this large piece for some treatment. We're going to deal with that later. Then you have this, this is 3 3/4 by 12. We're going to do a simple cut here, right in half. Both at the same time. We'll cut it at 6 inches. Both of these, all 4 of them, go in pocket B. And these narrow strips are destined for the D pile. I think I used those as well. Okay, we're getting there. Now we want to dip easily top to bottom with our green and the white. There we go. We got our grain figured out. I do the colored paper on top so that the white isn't so bright. We're just going to cut it 8 inches. Set aside this larger piece for treatment. And then we're going to take this other chunk here. This is a 4 by 12. And we'll cut it horizontally at 6. Now these 2 pieces, or 4 of them total, I want you to set those aside as well for scoring. Now I'm going to turn to the cut aparts so we can continue with our trimming. Then we've got some other fun things to do. It's going to be a great time. Okay, so let's start by placing piece, we can do it right side up into the trimmer, at 6.5 inches should put us right on the registration marks that are printed on the cut apart, just to separate this out into a nice clean section here. And then slide down once more to 3 1/4. Rotate, and we'll make 2 cuts to separate this out. That was at 11, and this is probably 5.5, and yes, it is. Okay, so these 2 tag-shaped pieces go in pocket B. Are we there yet? Pocket A. Repeat for this next section. 2 tags, pocket B. Are we there yet? Pocket A. Now this next section, I'm going to go ahead and just take off these quotations at the bottom and then trim them in half on the mark. Just watch for those registration marks, line it up with the edge of your blade, and you're good to go. All 4 of these little sentiments, even I have to go all out, I've got your back. They all go, all 4 of them, go in pocket A. And then you have this, all these fun little shapes, and these actually get fussy cut. You don't have to be real particular about it. In fact, Jacqueline designed them so that there's some halo of color around the image, so you don't have to worry about getting right up to the edges. I'm going to, for now, pocket that in A and reach for my final sheet of cut aparts. Let's go this way with it. So we have the word happy birthday in the upper right corner. And our first cut's at around 10.5. And then 9. And 6.5. Now we'll do a rotation. So I'm going to rotate it so that the flag shapes are on your right. The piece is essentially upside down, but that's okay. It allows us to get these shorter pieces taken off at the end. Just let them pile up in the order they land. Now rotate. Just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Every piece has a purpose. These two pieces, and as the sentiments as well, from that first row, all are filed in pocket B. And the same for the second section. Once you get these individual pieces created, file them in pocket B. All four of these flag-shaped ones go in C. Now you have two pieces with a bunch of squares. If you'd like, you can trim all the squares out at the same time, but I just like to make sure I'm super accurate with this, so I'll do it one row at a time. This happy birthday is actually a bonus. It's not specified for a certain card, but if you want to swap out a card to say happy birthday, then that's there for you as an option, which is kind of nice. I like options. Same as the case here for this other happy birthday, pocket D. And then all these little squares, I'm going to pop those in pocket C. Lots of stuff going on in there. And finally, one last strip here to divide into 4 sections. All of these go in pocket A. Okay, I'm going to set my trimmer aside for just a moment, and we're going to get a craft knife, a ruler, and a cutting mat. Okay, so I'm looking at one of these pieces that we've prepared. It currently measures 8 by 12. And I also have a pencil here with my ruler. What I want to do is from the bottom edge of this vertically placed piece, I'm going to mark a line at 3 inches. Just a little tick mark there at 3. Then up at the top, I'll measure from the edge, and I want to find 5 1/4 inches. So there's 5 1/4 and make a tick mark there. Now we need these same measurements on all of the 3 remaining 8 by 12s, the white, the craft, and the dark blue. So I'm going to take them and stack them up and just kind of layer them nice and neatly together so I can steal the position of the 3-inch mark and transfer it to the other pieces I have. So I'm just going 1, 2, 3. There, got the mark on each one there. And then from the top edge, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll just separate these real neatly. Maybe give them a nice little stack. That way you don't have to measure each time. So 1, 2, 3. That measurement is, again, 5 1/4 inches from the edge. And you can see that on this diagram. There's my 3-inch measurement and my 5 1/4. And the same is the case for the other ones. Okay, so what we need to do for each of these then is cut from mark to mark. So I'm going to take my ruler, line it up with the mark that I made here and here to make an angled cut. I just have a fresh blade and my craft knife. Boy, nothing better than that. Look at that. Now, you have a larger piece on your left and a little bit narrower piece on the right. So the one on the right needs to be trimmed further. So I'm going to set that aside to be trimmed, and the other one I'm going to put with my pieces to be scored. Same goes for the remaining 3 sheets of paper in the set. Okay, now that I have my pieces cut, these are the smaller of the two. Remember, the larger pieces went to be on the pile to be scored. And if you're in doubt, the distance from on the short end, the distance should be just 2 3/4 inch. Grab your trimmer. And I'm going to flip these over so that the narrowest part of the paper is on my right. These are all pretty darn close to being the same, which is good. We want them to be the same. And I'm just going to cut them. I'll start and do this first one. Although you can do it 2 at a time. If you feel comfortable, go for it. Just line it up in there nicely. And we're going to cut at 11 1/4. This is with the narrow part on the right. Then 7 1/2 and 3 3/4. So you've just made a series of angled panels, and then there's going to be 2 smaller scraps at the end, up to you if you want to pocket those. Otherwise, all of these are used in card set A. So I'm going to pop those into that pocket. Popped pocket. Okay, hopefully you're still awake. All right, we're going to repeat that. So again, here's the straight edge of the paper. Narrow portion is on the right. I'm doing this 2 at a time. 11 1/4. 7 1/2. 3 3/4. There's another set of angled panels. Those will cleverly nest on the other ones that we created. Here's our scrap. These go in pocket A. Now you're going to want to grab your score pal. I have this big old pile of cards that need to be scored, and since you're following along with me in the video, we can do all that scoring at once, which is kind of nice. I'll just walk you through it. And on the top of my pile, I've got these angled cards. So simply place the angled piece into the score pile so the straight edge is aligned with the top, and you'll score at 4 and 8. Now these end up getting Z folded, so you could flip but it's just as easy right now just to go with the 4 and the 8. Make sure you place it again with the straight edge, 4 and 8. Straight edge, 4 and 8. These become tri-folded, and they're used in card set A. Then you have these, I think these are 4 by 6 inches pieces that are going to become pockets for our cards. So they each need to be scored at 1, so horizontally at 1 and 5. And then if you want to rotate, you can score at 3 vertically. What that does is creates a 1-inch area in a U shape. Don't score the other long edge. So again, horizontally at 1 and 5. Rotate it so it's vertical and score at 3. And I'm going to do these last 2 at the same time. So horizontally at 1 and 5. Rotate at 3. These are used in card set B. B as in boy. Now we have 2 sizes left. We have some smaller ones here. And what we want to do when we score these is make sure that at the top of the board, that this is in vertically, and the number you see here is 7 inches, and then 8 1/2 down here. So you're scoring vertically at 3 1/2. These are the card bases for set C. And then we have these 7 by 10s. So when you place this in the score pal, make sure you see a 10 up here, a 7 down here, and I'll score at 5. Okay, so that is the base for card set B. I'll file that. And now all my prep work is done. For a dozen cards, of live footage, I have 25 minutes. So not bad for getting all of this stuff prepared. Next, let's get ready to make all of the cards for set A. I've gone ahead and taken everything out of pocket A, just so we could be organized as we get started together. So if you want to do that, same thing. I've got my trifold bases, my larger, just square rectangular panels, my angled panels, some sentiments, and then the images that we're going to be using for decorative elements on our cards. So to get started, I think we'll just, before we deal everything out and organize it, I'm going to have you take one of these angled trifold pieces, and I want you to position it so that the widest part is on your right and the narrow is on the left, the straight edge is at the bottom. So trifold it in that way. So bring this over to the right and bring that back over to the left. Kind of make that zigzag. And that is, give myself some room here, just kind of make sure everything's lined up. We were not able to score this. We chose not to score it so that we're burying the bump of the fold. But again, largest area is here. Let's fold that direction. And then we'll fold back for the trifold. Just make sure things are lined up before you make your creases. So give you a nice, tidy little card. And repeat that for the other 2. So I've successfully made my angled pieces. They're all the same. And I've got all these other angled panels. So let's get these organized because we have to distribute the colors. Everything's kind of a different color. And I'm going to use my instruction document. I'm on page 3, and I'll look at these 4 main card images to determine how these pieces are distributed. So I'm going to go with green here in my upper left corner for the deal. And then I'll choose the light blue, another light blue here, and then a green. Okay, then for my zigzag, I'll go white, and craft, and green, and dark blue. Okay, now we have all these angles. I'll do the front panels first. We got a blue little guy here, and then a green angle here, and that should just fit right in there pretty nicely, provided you cut nice and straight. And then I have a craft and then a white. So those are all the smallest set of these 3 angled panels. Then for the medium-sized ones, maybe I'll just separate those out. Those are going to be flipped so that the highest section is on our left. So the first panel I'll deal out toward this card is going to be green, and that should fit right in there nicely. And then white and dark blue. I tried to vary the colors as much as I could, and I'm really pleased with how this came out. It's like, oh, when it works, it really, really works. Now for the third and largest panel that will slide onto the white here will be craft, then dark blue, white here, and dark, or we'll do it with the dark green here, or green, I guess. It's just green. Okay, so those are our 4 cards, and then we'll distribute our innies. Hope Sunny Days are just around the trail. We'll go on these top 2 cards. Those are the far innies, and then it's time for some more fun with the other 2. And then we've got the I've Got Your Back, and Even If I Have to Go All Out. Same with these. So even if I have to go all out, I've got your back. The other 2 are we there yet? Each of these receives 1 jar-shaped tag. And then they all need some trimmed elements. So I'm going to pause my filming here, and I'm going to have a seat in my comfortable desk chair and trim around these images, and we'll sort these all out when we come back. Okay, I'm back, and I have everything trimmed out. It didn't take me that long. Again, because I said you don't have to get right up to the image. Just kind of a rough cut is absolutely fine. So the adorable outhouses go on the first set of cards along with the backpacks. So let's dig at those out. Oh, I love this. Okay, and then we have a RV and a car, and then a small and large tree on each of those. Why don't we go ahead and make this first card? The others go together in the same exact way. So I'll stack up these components and set them aside. Order of assembly is kind of important for this card simply because we are using brads, and if you don't want to have the brad prongs showing from the back side of this, you'll want to assemble this front panel before you really do anything else. So let's take a look at this. And the front panel, we're going to be using Even If I Have to Go All Out. That's our first little quote. And I went ahead and found a scrap. Oh, look at that. We have a light blue strip that was a scrap, and it's exactly the right width to accommodate my sentiment here. So I will just adhere this with equal spacing to the left edge. And I know you're probably wondering what's come over me, but I'm going to trim this with my scissors because it's pretty easy to see. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, well then I'll take some adhesive and center this onto the blue portion of the card. And I didn't even use my ruler, okay? I know, right? So I keep my pokey tool in a wine cork, and I'm going to pierce 3 holes. I'll try to equally space them. I think I used a ruler on my last attempt because, you know, these cards get seen by a lot of people. And I'll add my little, just a set of 3 of these cute little tree brads. Okay, one other little step you can do is with the darling ribbon. We have a lot of ribbon to utilize, so I'm going to trim off a length with a little point. And I'll use some tape to just tape this to the back of the outhouse. kind of near the bottom. When we plan to attach this, I want the outhouse to actually be extending past the angled edge of the blue panel. And I'm going to attach it with some foam adhesive circles. So just be aware of where your adhesive is going. I like to cut these in half to just get more mileage out of them. And I'll do some along the bottom here and maybe one more like in this spot, but nothing in that upper area because I want it to extend past the angle. Now if you want, now would be a fine time to adhere this blue panel to the front of this white angled card. We're going to open it this way, and now we've got this green panel here. So the way we're going to do that is, because we're not working with brads at this point, we can nest this green panel where we'd like it to go. And the backpack, once again, I want it to extend. This time I won't use foam adhesive, but I do want this backpack to kind of be peeking out past, but not too far. And then I've got your back is another sentiment that we can use. And if you would like, you can take a section of scrap paper, or this one, I can trim it just to fit. Well, I'm back and I've got this trimmed. It turned out to be kind of a weird measurement, 7/8 by 3. But regardless, I had extra paper, so that's why I chose to mat this. But again, that's entirely up to you if you want to do it. And then we'll just add that. And then on the inside now, I will go ahead and adhere the craft colored panel. In fact, this whole thing then will be attached to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch just flat card base. Okay, now for the inside, we're going to have some fun. We've got the sentiment. Hope sunny days are just down the trail. We can go ahead and attach that, but I'm going to do it more toward the right, lower right corner of this craft area. And now we have this sweet tag. So to have some fun, let's make it look more like a jar, and we'll use our special little pen here. I'm just going to outline like the ridges of a canning jar. And you don't have to be real careful with this. And then I'm going to outline the outer edge. And it's okay if you have a little break in the line. Kind of gives it a nice look. And I'm even going to do a little curved line here so that you can see it like through the clear part of the jar. And at this point, you could even write something like what I did on the original. I just put have a great, maybe mix up your font a little, then we'll do all caps day. Sweet. Okay. Next thing you can do, if you would like, is just pop in one of these tree brads into the jar. That'll make it cute at the top. And finally, another option is to take some of this jute fiber, wrap it around the top of the lid a few times, and tie a knot or a bow. So then let's attach the tag to the left edge of this. Oh, I'm so happy with this. It's really sweet. Now, if you'd like, what you could do is leave the tag blank, and then you can put a personalized greeting right into the jar. I think the recipient will absolutely love this. So even if I have to go out, I've got your back. Hope sunny days are just down the trail and thinking of you. What a sweet card. I will set this aside, and I'm going to show you the other cards in that collection. So this is the first one we did together, and we have a second one just like it, but varied colors. And I left the jar open, but I still did the outlining and the ridges. I just think it adds a lot to these tags. Here's the RV there yet. I used some blue that was left over, and again attached this with foam adhesive. On this, I simply have the trees kind of extending past the angled fold, and then the sentiment on the inside, enjoy the journey. Again, you can use anything you want, and we make 2 like that. So that is card set A, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this angled trifold, and let's move on to our cute pocket cards. I have once again taken everything out of pocket B to make these 5x7 pocket cards, and I've just organized the pieces a little bit into like sizes. I think that always gives us a good start on staying organized. I'm also looking at page, 4 of my instructions. So let's just go ahead and, because these cards are so large, I'm going to fold this in half. Okay, so now we have our cards. We've got the light blue, the dark blue, and the prints. Each one of these cards gets a pocket. So I'll take a white pocket for both of these and a green pocket paper for that. Then we have 2 different sizes here. They're just slightly different. They're nestables. So we'll do the larger nestable will be craft, blue, blue. The smaller nestable will be green, light blue, white, and craft. Now, what you may notice in your instructions that this does not look very white. I actually ended up inking the edges here with some earth ink on this particular card. Again, all of those are personal preference and completely up to you. Then each card gets a little rectangle. The prints will go up here, and then we use blue here and light or dark blue here and light blue. Now we have some sentiment tags. We'll do make today an adventure, hot dog on the right, the tent here on the lower left, and then the signpost. We have some images to distribute. So how about a cabin, 2 chairs in the fire. We got some trees, and we got some roasting marshmallows. Finally, go all out. It's your birthday. And today be most special, and congratulations. Now to figure all that out, as always, I'm looking at my images for the color distribution, and then I'm looking at the little caption below to know what elements went inside of each card. We will make the first one in the pile, so I'll stack and set aside the remaining card bases so that we can make this one together. And let's start by making the pocket. So I'll take a scissors here, and we're going to miter those corners. I like to look at the raised portion of the score when I do this, and I'm just removing the corner. So I'm cutting from just outside the score line at an angle toward the intersection of those 2 lines, and same thing over here. So that's what I'm after, this miter, a slightly wide V to create 3 flaps. Now at this point, what you could do is run this through some sort of an embossing machine to add a little texture. I had a wood texture die that looked really, really cool with this. You could stencil it maybe with the stencil, the buffalo plaid stencil that came with the Happy Camper page kit. I mean, any kind of decorative element can certainly be added. Now it's really important when you make a fold in tabs for a pocket, that the 2 side tabs come in first, and then the bottom tab comes in last. The purpose of that is when you slide a tag into the pocket, if you don't do it in that order, the bottom of the tag will constantly get caught on the flap of the bottom flap of the pocket. But by bringing this in last, then you clear the way much, much more easily. So if you want, you can take some bookbinding glue. This isn't absolutely a must, but just so you can keep that pocket shape, we'll tack that down. Another thing that you can do is place this into a punch board, and looks like if I just punch this at 2 inches, we should be in the center, and that just adds a nice little thumb hole or a notch to make it clear that it is indeed a pocket. I would have done that normally before I'd folded it in, but it worked just fine if you just did it at 2 inches when the pocket is made, and you'll need to do it at 3 inches before the pocket's made. I hope that made sense. Okay, we have some elements that we can add to our pocket. So we've got this really cute little cut apart, and that will nest onto this paper. And then we can center that onto the pocket. Then we have this adorable compass charm, and to draw the eye to the charm is kind of fun if you add a little bit of this jute. Now what you can do here is use bookbinding glue to attach this, but I wouldn't do it at this point, but that's where this compass is going to live. And that really does a nice job of accenting this and embellishing. And then I'll take my bookbinding glue and needle tip applicator, and I'll just kind of outline this pocket, the U-shaped portion of the pocket, and center that onto the bottom of this card. Now we have three things here remaining here. We've got this tag. Now one option is to simply just take scissors, and I usually like to use a longer blade, which I'll do because I'm feeling kind of laid back right now. And I'm going to trim away these triangles, kind of to match the outline size of everything else. Then I will add some adhesive to this and nest it onto my first mat. Just check left and right and bottom. Make sure all of those reveals are the same. And I'll come in and replicate that distance again with scissors. If I'm feeling real particular, then I would probably use a craft knife and a cutting mat and a ruler, or yes, to make all that happen. So now we'll nest this onto the larger. I just think it's so clever how this all fits together. One last trim of these triangles. Oh, it looks fine. Okay, beautiful. Now, if I take, I've got a hole punch here. I'll do the larger hole on my crocodile, and well, I mean, again, you could measure to center this, but I'm just going to eyeball to add this hole. And we have this gorgeous, beautiful, wide, lovely light blue satin. It's dual-faced satin, so you don't have to worry about, you know, which side is facing out, which I love. I'm just going to tie a double knot here. I'll make a nice little V by folding lengthwise and trimming at an angle toward the bow. Isn't that lovely? Okay, then this slides in to the tag, or into the pocket. Then Go All Out is on the inside, and an option that you have, one of the scraps, like this larger one, and we could even put it in like this into the inside of the card if you wanted to, just to give you some contrast. Because why not? We can. Whatever you want to do with those scrap pieces is completely at your discretion. I like that. Go all out. Then it gives you a little spot to sign your name. Beautiful card with this gorgeous ribbon. Let's take a look at the others in this set. So this was the first one we made together, and you can see on my finished version that I did not on camera, I've added that wood texture to the pocket, and that just kicks it up another notch. Then we have the other one like it, the same basic structure and our wood texture there, same ribbon. Then with the printed version, I switched over to the gingham ribbon. Something Wonderful is on the Horizon, and I kept that wood texture for the pocket. Didn't add anything in there. Same basic structure and assembly, hole punch, ribbon, and your sentiment. So there you have 4 lovely 5x7 pocket cards, and now it's time for our final set. I've emptied everything from Pocket C, and I've got to admit there's something very therapeutic about sorting through all the pieces in there and putting them into piles of like sizes. We'll begin with our card bases. As always, we'll just fold these long or tall, skinny, whatever, cards in half. I'm consulting page 5 of my instructions. This is the final page, and let's just set things up sort of like how things are laid out here in front of me. I've got a craft card base, then we have a light blue, a vertical green, and a vertical white. I gotta make sure you can see all this. Okay, now we have these larger, the largest of the panels, so let's distribute those. So light blue goes with craft, dark blue goes with light blue, and then the prints go on the green and the white. Now we have these medium-sized panels, so let's get those distributed. And if you want to swap colors, have at it. So we've got white and craft and white and craft. Now these other narrower panels that are long and skinny, they actually fit the sentiment panels for the inside of the card, which I thought was really fun. It would have been a scrap, but I was able to actually use it. Now we have the largest set of squares. So I'm going to distribute 3 dark blue onto this card and 3 light blue onto this one. Then the prints. So because of the way I cut this paper, it's looking a little differently than my other one. It doesn't matter, it's the print. Okay, now we're going to alternate and do some nesting. Let's take 3 dark blue squares and add them to this one, 3 light blue here, and now we're going to bring our print over to the ones that don't have any decor on them right now. Okay, nice. Finally, let's distribute all of the little artworks. Got it. For our interior, you can use any combination of color that you like. Maybe I'll put the prints with the horizontal cards, and I'll put the opposing colors with these boys. And then for the sentiments, you've made me a happy camper. Thank you. Hope you're feeling better. And for the vertical, we'll go happy birthday and then happy anniversary. Now, again, if you don't like the happy anniversary, for example, like you don't know anyone who's celebrating an anniversary anytime soon, you can go ahead and substitute the inner sentiment for those spare happy birthdays. There are 2 of them that we included as a bonus. So you can, if you don't want to do a get well, make it a happy birthday. That gives you that flexibility. So I'm going to stack up my 2 verticals and one of my horizontals and set those aside. We'll make that first card in the lineup right on page 5, and I'll show you how I use that gel pen to just create some areas of interest. We'll begin by centering the blue panel, the light blue panel, onto the card base. Next, I'm going to take some of this beautiful gingham ribbon. As I mentioned, we have a lot of ribbon that we can use, so might as well use it, right? I'm just going to give one my little pointy ends and stretch that across the card base. Okay, so the next, I'm going to set that aside for now. The next thing I'm going to put on is my white. Now you'll notice it's not exactly proportionate on this card base, but what it will be proportionate to is our squares. Let me just quick show you where we're headed. So these 3 squares will be placed on the white and everything will be lined up perfectly. Maybe that would be a good place to start. Let's center some of these squares so that that's easy to see and do. Okay, so then we've got this guy. I think I will use my ruler to help me find my center here. Now at this point, I think is the time we need to add our ribbon because it's going to be sandwiched between those 3 other art panels. So I'm just going to roughly add some adhesive so I can place the ribbon across the center. Okay, and now we can add our elements. So the spacing between them is a little bit narrow, but in order to get them all lined up around the outside edges, I think that looks fantastic. But I will, again, use my 0 center to make sure. Now, if I grab my little gel pen and with a slightly unsteady hand, that's kind of the goal, I'm going to go around the perimeter. I'm going to do this on the blue, go around the edge of the white. Cute. Then you have the other option. You can continue on then and go again. So I'm writing on the white panel, turning my corner, just allowing about a 1/16 of an inch between the blue mat and my black line. That is so sweet. I just think the pen line adds a lot, but it's completely optional. If it's a little too informal for you, I understand. It's not a big deal. Now for the inside of the card, you can center this if you like, or you can line it right up at the edge. I think it looks pretty nice centered, but let's see. I'm going to go ahead and make my angled cuts to the point so I can turn this into more of a banner look. casual. And then I'll nest this and continue with the look of the banner. I'm going to go right to the edge here. Ideally, I would use a ruler and a craft knife again, but it's fine, right? It just depends, again, what kind of mood you're in. You've made me a happy camper. Thank you. Isn't that sweet? I just love this. So even if you're not a camper, it does not matter. What's nice about this is it's masculine. It can be used for kids. What kid doesn't like roasted marshmallows, right? Okay, so that's the this version of the card. Let's take a look at the others that I made in the set. So I'll set that one aside. This is the other horizontal. Very nice. Very good. Okay, that's the one we made. And then here's a vertical. And then I just did the ribbon the same exact way, ran it through all the way. And this really pops. Using the navy in here looks so nice. And then here we have the other version as well. All of these are light enough that you can sew right in the inside with this nice cool color palette. Well, ladies and gentlemen, happy camper card makers, this is your tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned stuff, and that once you've mastered these 12 cards using just 12 sheets of paper, that you will substitute paper of your own and follow those trimming instructions from the diagrams and make additional cards of a different variety. Well, have fun, and I'll see you next month. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the page kit tutorial as well for this Happy Camper collection. It's a good time.